Good morning. Welcome to Viking Preparedness. I'm Pastor Joe Fox. I said something the other day about how I thought that probably most of y'all, most of my viewers, which by the way, thank you for being my viewers, but that most of y'all probably live in the suburbs just because that's the nature of things in America. And so I actually am trying to think of things that help you because, me telling you, move out here, get yourself a big old garden, get a pond, stock it with fish, build your greenhouse, chop your wood to heat your home. That sounds cool. I mean, and I know it's interesting, and some of you are moving that way, but a lot of you are just like, man, I can't do that. I just can't do that. So what can I do? I also know that you have ideas, right? You're not just sitting there waiting on me to tell you what to do. But I have some ideas, and I thought I'd share them with you. If you don't mind, I'm going to drink some coffee because this is my second cup. And I thought I'd share them with you, and maybe some of them will work for you, and maybe some of them will spin off into other ideas that actually, are more suitable for your particular circumstance. I used to live in Suburbia. I lived in Suburbia in many places, and so, the way I define Suburbia is not in the city with the high rises and the taxi cabs everywhere and all that, but, out there where all the houses are really pretty close together, commuting distance, right? Every house is on like a quarter acre, and there's streets, and your house is on a street, and you've got houses on both sides, or you're in a cul-de-sac, and you have people on your left, your right, across the street, and behind your house, right? Surrounded by people who are generally of your socioeconomic status, yada yada. Most people in the suburbs don't know all their neighbors. They're vaguely familiar with what some of their names are and who they are, and they may have, they talk to somebody when they mow that part of the sidewalk over by their house or something. And so what can you do? Well, I'll tell you some of the things I did. If the balloon goes up and you're in the suburbs, chances are great that that's where you're going to be. And that's where you're going to stay for the, immediate, foreseeable future. And so I tell you all the time, get to know your neighbors. And most of you are like, yeah, whatever. You don't know my neighbors, Pastor Joe. I still recommend you do that. Have barbecues. The weather's starting to get nice. The spring birds are coming out here, so maybe they're coming out in your place. And so, have a block party, grill some meat, that kind of thing. Try to get to know your neighbors. Keep doing that. Keep making the effort. Do the little things, shovel their part of the sidewalk or something. Give them something out of your garden, and that kind of leads to number 2. You can grow pretty good gardens in the suburbs. You can grow tomatoes and stuff like that. Some places you can plant a little fruit tree, and then you can give your neighbor a couple apples off your fruit tree or something. Engender goodwill, because that will pay off later. But try and grow some food. Try and start getting a garden going. We used to, we lived in one of those typical lots, and we took some screening material. I don't remember what kind it was, and we put it in the corner of our yard. So there's already a corner of chain link fence. We made another corner, so there's a little square back there. And I used to mow my lawn, and then I'd rake it because I lived in the suburbs. And we'd put the grass clippings in there, and I'd put the leaves in there when we raked our leaves, and I'd put the dog poop in there, and the kitchen scraps, not meat or cheese, but the other stuff. And we had a great little compost pile, and that thing would cook and go down, and then we would take the dirt out of it and put it in our gardens, and just grow little veggie gardens. And so try and produce a little bit of your own food that way. I'm not an aquaponics guy, but there are people who are. And I think with electricity in a garage, you could probably set up a little aquaponics system, maybe. I'm not convinced of the efficacy, quite frankly, of aquaponics. I think if you put that time and money into something like a little mini greenhouse on the back of your house, you might actually grow more food. But, you could look into that. Can't typically raise chickens in most suburbs that I'm familiar with. But, if you can in your area, raise some chickens. So there's some things. Water. Know where your water sources are. Know, how you're going to get there, how you're going to walk there. Sorry for the camera angle. How you're going to get to the water source. How are you going to carry water back to your house? Think about catching the water off your gutters. Right now on Shofar Mountain, we're probably 70% living off of rainwater that comes off our roof. I'm just going to sit down here so I don't have to keep walking around. And so start figuring out how you're going to catch that water, how you're going to put it into barrels and then transport it into your house and then use it to wash dishes and flush toilets and, brush your teeth or whatever. How are you going to purify it? You're going to get a big Berkey, or are you going to use a little campfire ring in the backyard? I'm trying to set my coffee down without spilling it. That would be a sin. I guess I'll just hold it. Can you build a campfire ring in your backyard? If you can, that's huge. You can cook food over it. You can boil your water over it to purify it. Maybe you buy a big Berkey, something. But think about water. Something we did is I went to a local cola bottling plant and we got a whole bunch of those white 55-gallon barrels. I mean, when I say a whole bunch, I mean like 14 of them. We took several trips. And we brought them home, cleaned them out with, all that unlimited water that comes out of the end of your hose when you live in suburbia. That's pretty nice. We cleaned them out. We filled them with water. You have to, I learned this by trial and error, cover them with black plastic so that the sunlight doesn't get in there or you're going to have algae water. And algae water can still be purified, but it just, it's more difficult. And we covered them with black plastic. Then I put a blue tarp over them, and then I put a bunch of those yellow and red kids' toys, like big wheels and stuff like that, kind of on the blue tarp and around the blue tarp to sort of camouflage it from my backyard neighbors, so they wouldn't wonder what that big square blue cube was in my backyard. And I had a concrete patio, and so I set them on the concrete patio. So you can think of something like that. Store water, though. Have water so that, because here's the idea I'm thinking about. Suburbia, the balloon goes up, you're initially going to want to hunker down, right, and not wander around a whole bunch of things are bad. Might be a good idea in the initial stages while it's still a little bit not crazy. Go check on your neighbors. That old lady who lives next door. Hey, Mrs. Johnson, are you okay? Yep. You need anything? No, I'm good. All right. Just kind of be that guy or that gal, the helpful one. Let them put you in that side of the equation in their brain. I like that family. They're nice. We'll be that nice family. So water, food, store as much food as you can. In the suburbs, it's going to be a little bit harder for you to bake bread in a grid down situation than it is for us out here. We're getting ready to start building a cob oven. But you can store a lot of, most of the food in the grocery store that's on the shelves, I'm not talking on the periphery, but in the middle of the grocery store will last well over a year in your house. So start buying stuff like that so you can eat, get canned veggies and canned soup and crackers and, jerky and just peanut butter and jelly, and Pop-Tarts last forever. I know it's not as good as eating, what we eat out here, but food is food, and food is good when you are hungry. Tell a hungry man, yeah, this Pop-Tart might have some modified corn syrup, food starch, whatever in it, and he won't care. He'll eat that Pop-Tart and be happy, and so will you. So store some food in your house. Not some, store a lot. I don't think you can have too much food. You have all kinds of nooks and crannies. I lived in a split level in northern Virginia, which you want to talk about suburbs, and underneath the one level of it was just like this mini basement about 4 feet high. We filled that thing with food. Just fill it with food. You don't need a whole bunch of guns, but you're going to need some, but I'm not telling you anything you don't know, right? You might want to start figuring out now where are the strategic points to control traffic flow, and I mean foot traffic also. If you could block off a couple corners around your block or the end of your cul-de-sac or something like that, that would be good. You typically can't put razor wire up in your yard and things like that, but you can put fencing up. And I would recommend you put the highest fence you're allowed to put up without looking weird, right? You don't want to be the weird guy in the suburbs. You don't want to stick out that much. But start thinking about security like that. You might want to pre-cut some plywood panels, pretty thick ones, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch panels, and figure out how you're going to attach them over your windows, at least the windows that face the street, to keep rocks and bricks and things like that from coming through. How are you going to heat your house if you live in a place where it gets really cold? I think a lot of people overreact to that because you don't live out here like I do. You're probably in most of America, United States, not going to freeze to death in your house even without heat. Just put on more clothes, sleep in sleeping bags in your bed, put the whole family in one big bed, you'll be fine. It'll be colder than you're used to, but you're not going to die. But it is nice to have some warmth. So if you have a fireplace, fireplaces are not great for heating things, but you could maybe consider, if you're in suburbs, you typically have a job, right? Which means you have income, which means you have some disposable income. Get a fireplace insert if you can to put in your fireplace. If you can have a wood stove, great. Get a supply of wood. Stack a supply of wood along that back fence, right? So that you have it, not just the the little $5 bundle, $7 bundle you buy at the local 7-Eleven, so we can have a cute fire because the Joneses are coming over for dinner. Stack some firewood. My wife and I got creative in Northern Virginia. They were making a new road, and they were chopping down these trees, and the highway department was cool. They cut all the trees into like I don't know, 2-foot sections, 2-foot lengths, the trunks, and just left them there for people to come get. And so we would go get those things, throw them in our Suburban, bring them back, put them next to the kitchen on the driveway, and while I was at work, my wife would split them with a sledgehammer, wedges, a maul. We used to have an 8-pound sledgehammer and an 8-pound wedge. That was too heavy for her, so now we also have a 6-pound sledgehammer and a 6-pound wedge. Those are hers. But you can get wood like that. Thing is, get it now, right? You have to lay in a store. You have to kind of think, I may be in a siege mentality, sort of. And so start laying in those supplies: food, water, warmth, medical, things like that. Make a notebook. Don't be creepy about it, but make a notebook of who all your neighbors are, what houses they live in, and then try and identify what skill sets they have. Is this guy an EMT? Is that woman a nurse? Is that guy a nurse? Is that woman an EMT? I'm not trying to be sexist here. Is this guy a cop? Just learn their skill sets. Is this guy a hunter? And kind of write them down so that you have that later, because you may need something later when the society is kind of collapsing. And so know who to approach. And if you meet people in your neighborhood with really good skill sets, I'm thinking like the emergency room nurse, the long-term care nurse. I love nurses. Go out of your way to make friends with those people, cultivate those contacts for those people. So yeah, food, water, protection. Think about where your family's going to sleep in an event. After an event, you may not all be sleeping in your bedrooms because that just may not be safe. You may all be sleeping in one bedroom, that you can secure. So think about that. Where's the safest place to sleep? How are you going to reinforce your house for stray bullets coming through? If you live in a house that has like I've lived in a few split levels where like the bottom level, dirt comes up almost to the bottom of the window, and usually those are the dens, right? The second living room. That's a great thing to convert into a bedroom. Just line the beds out there because you're laying below ground level, so if somebody does a drive-by or something crazy like that, you guys are all below ground level. And so you can do that. Think about where you're going to put that family that comes to live with you, because having more people is good, right? And so you want to make them as comfortable as possible. Maybe you move your little girl out of her room into your son's room, and you put that family in her room, something like that. Or maybe you put all the kids, their kids and your kids, boys in one room, girls in another room, and you give the adults, I don't know, put the boys in the living room, give the adults the boys' room, something like that. You can work it out. Think about that, though. How are you going to receive visitors? Americans go crazy over toilet paper. I remember Y2K. Oh, we got to store toilet paper. We got to store toilet paper. When your brain is going to how you're going to wipe your butt and you think that's the most important thing, people have been wiping their butt forever, and there hasn't been toilet paper forever. I'd say don't stress about that too much. If you find yourself stressing over toilet paper, I would say you better check your other preps. What are you missing greatly? Work clothes. A lot of people in the suburbs don't have good work clothes. You see like the cover of Mother Earth News, and somebody's in a brand new pair of jeans and a little cowboy shirt with these like little brand new leather gloves. Ooh, look at us, we're working in our yard. Get some Dickies, get some Carhartts, get some boots, real boots, get some real gloves, several sets, because you wear out gloves when you're working, because the suburbs could quickly turn into something very similar to like where I live, without electricity and things, and you're going to have to work for stuff. So kind of get that in your mind. I'm going to need work clothes. Those little ballet looking flats that women wear, yeah, you won't be wearing those. Make sure you have some running shoes, boots, stuff like that you can be mobile in and move around in. So clothes. Yeah. So, hey, I'm interested. You guys have comments. You have ideas. You think about this. I've been removed from the suburbs for years now. So I haven't been thinking about these things. I would be interested in constructive comments down below. Like, hey, we do this, or have you considered this, to kind of get the brain juices flowing for people, for other people, because I do realize that a lot of y'all won't be leaving the suburbs. You'll be staying there and make and do the best you can with what you got. But if you do some pre-planning, if you think about things ahead, if you pre-position some supplies, if you take some action now, I think you'll be a lot better off in the long run than if you just kind of blithely walk into the events like, oh, I guess we're going to deal with it. I do wish the best for y'all, and maybe I'll see you out there.